my takeaway was I like what Julie said about always, you stress this, expressing appreciation for your partner in both their value and their work that they do and their value that they are to you. That's something that my wife and I have been practicing lately, and it does wonders for the relationship and for self-esteem and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
You guys have really got that down, Rex. I'm so glad you remind us all.
It just took 17 years, but
yeah.
But man, it makes a big difference. I was going to ask, one of the things you said, and was about what should you do, or like to ask yourself questions. What do I do when I'm flooded? Just about people's emotional response. I've often found that a lot of people aren't even really aware of their emotions, especially men. This is something that happened to me years ago, was just becoming aware of my emotions and then finding out, oh, okay, I'm upset, or it helped me communicate with my wife and be more aware of myself and not just be triggered or guided by my emotions. Do you have any recommendations to help people kind of recognize their emotions and maybe start to map them and not let them guide them so much so they can be better parents and relationship partners?
Yeah. Flooding is such an important phenomena to understand, because what happens when we get triggered, we have this physiological arousal that happens within us, and our fight and flight kicks in. And our fight and flight system's designed to make us either, stand there and really do battle with someone and, win or run. So it's recognizing that increasing heart rate, that increasing breathing, that I'm feeling really angry, and labeling that, knowing that, and then saying, I need to walk away. Because if we flip the lid, we're going to lose it and we're going to be in the fight and flight mode. And when we're there, our rational brain leaves us. And so not helpful for our relationship. We can end up doing things that we don't really want to do, or that we're going to be remorseful about, and say things that we need to really repair later, but you can't always take back. So, and then certainly with a child, that anger, and a little baby, if they're in our hands and we're really angry, that's not a safe space for that baby. So it's recognizing, this is this feeling that is coming over. I need to leave the room. And what's recommended for that is a good 20 minutes time out to self-soothe and to calm down. So, and then be thinking about something else that can just bring that blood pressure down, bring that heart rate down. Now, the challenge is it's not just our partner that can bring us to this state. Our babies can do this too. And so this is a really important thing to recognize when having a baby, that this is not something we choose. It's not just something that we choose for adults. We get flooded when we're driving a car. We can be road raging. When we're trying to fix our internet service provider and we're stuck on the phone to a call center, boom, flooded. Can you get with that? So, but it can be this baby, like we're tired, we're stressed, we don't feel connected to our partner. It's building. And then all of a sudden we're going to tip. So it's knowing to put the baby in the cot, in the pram, somewhere safe, because it's better that the baby's having a good cry than to be with us when we're in this flooded state. So they would be my tips for that. And I think it's a real key ingredient of learning from this bringing baby home.
Is there a good way for parents too to help their children as they're growing, like recognize their emotions and not, flip the lid, but just kind of be more aware?
Oh, yeah. So I think everything we do as a parent is about, teaching our children how to be humans. So, and they're going to watch. They're going to learn a lot from our own actions and behavior and our temperament. So a volatile behavior that we might have, we're going to see this in our children. We could be yelling at our children, stop shouting. We're a big shouter ourselves.
Never happened. I'm all cucumber.
Yeah, that's right. So, we need to really think about our own stuff, because this is what we're teaching our children. And then getting an understanding of our own stuff and our own way of how we self-regulate and how we manage our emotions or how we feel things. We can teach our children that too, and we begin to label their emotions for them. This looks like sadness. This looks like anger. This looks like you feel worried. And so children can then learn strategies about what to do with these big feelings that they're having and manage them better. And I guess this all leads into why I get passionate about preventing violence. It's these sort of ingredients that we need. If we know how to regulate, maybe we could do something about addressing this problem that seems to be increasing in society.
Yeah, I think sometimes people assume that something is happening on purpose. And something I've learned that helps me or even my kids or anybody is like, you know what? That didn't happen on purpose. That was probably a mistake. The person didn't know what they were doing, or maybe they haven't done that before, especially with kids. They're going to bump things, knock things over, break things. They're not doing it on purpose. They're learning, and it's something new to them, and they're not aware and they're not experienced. I feel like that helps a lot of just calming people down if they realize, that wasn't on purpose. That's not something personal. It's just life and how things happen.
Yeah, such a good point. Like that, and that gets to the criticism. So the habits we can make by the way we speak to our partner is the habits that we have in how we speak to our children. So if we think about, we have a dinner guest. We've set this beautiful table. We've got the white tablecloth. We've got the glass of wine, and we're spreading it around. And then a visitor knocks the glass of wine over. You got the big red wine stain all over the white tablecloth. What do we say? We don't say, "Man, you're such an idiot," do we? Like we
maybe not
we
you.
just go, now look what you've done. Oh my God, you've ruined it. We don't do that. We kind of get that tablecloth and it's okay. And they've totally trashed it. And we fix it. And we pour them another glass and we make them feel good about it. And we go, it's okay, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And yet, the child knocks over a milk. Watch what you're doing. How stupid. Or our partner hasn't done something for us. They forgot to put the bin out and the rubbish hasn't been collected. Damn, how stupid are you? It's bin night every Monday night. How come you don't know that? So if we can get better at it and start treating our partner like our guests and our family like our guests, then this gentleness emerges in what we do at home as well. And we teach that, we show that. So it's being conscious about how we do our things and how we say things. So that it's kind of important to really start preparing for that before the baby comes, when we're in a much healthier headspace and relaxed headspace, so we can make our conversation clearer and nicer. And then it'll flow on to our children too.
I love that story you told about the wine and spilling something. And it reminds me of, I interviewed one of our educators a couple years ago, Dave. Dania, I think her name was. And I'll never forget this because I used this. She said this thing so perfectly and I used it. Was, if your child spills milk, is it going to matter in 10 years? No. But how you react to it right then might matter in 10 years. And I remember hearing that and it just blew me away. It just summed it up so well. Like your story about the wine, the same thing is just forgive and it's okay and move on. It's not the end of the world. There'll be more wine. There'll be more white tablecloths.
More milk.
It's a problem that can be remedied.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, that's true. Like we can really destroy, good things by our words and our actions. So what? They leave the tea bag in the sink. Does it really matter? They leave the toilet seat up. We can get so fixated on the towel, it's not in the right place, or the coffee cup doesn't go back in the dishwasher, or, they drank the milk, all these things we can just fixate on. But at the end of the day, what really matters? Are they nice? Are they kind? Are they dependable? Are they reliable? Do they turn up for you? That's the important thing.
Yeah, I agree. How did you get into this, Julie? How did you get into this career path?
Oh my goodness!
What was the catalyst?
Well, I think just from my own journey, I began midwifery and antenatal care, and I thought dads were always excluded from the program, and married to an high conflict Navy man. He would say, and when I was expecting our first baby, it's like, it's all about the girls, all about the women. What about the men? Not always coming from a place of good, but it made me really think about that. And I thought, how do we include men in education better? So I've always actively been looking. And then my own personal challenges that I thought were just normal, and how I need some tools here. How do I help this environment while I'm trying to raise children, keep moving, and we're away, and I'm seeing this gap grow between us. And so when I moved to Canberra, I just stumbled on this program with a colleague who had only just had gone to the Seattle to do Bring Your Baby Home. So she dragged me over there as well, and off we went. So that was in 2008. And, I just think it's so necessary and so important. So I've just kind of molded it. When I was advocating for defense families, I kind of was using some of the ingredients. I thought, living in the army, wouldn't this be a great program? We just need this. And, workplaces, we've really employed some of these skills, like love maps with our teammates and expressing appreciation and gratitude. And it's, so I see it working. And I think each time I teach the program, I'm far from a perfect partner or parent, but, each time you teach the program, I think I'm just a little nicer for a little bit anyway. It's a bit of chicken soup for the soul. The content is just really good for you.
I like how you mentioned your being married to a Navy person, and him always saying, what about the men? When my wife and I had our first baby, we got 4 kids. We were originally going to go to a hospital, and somebody recommended a doula, which had been something I'd never heard of before.
Yeah.
And we got interested in that. I remember talking to some doulas, and just being surprised through the experience. Like, they're not just helping my wife, they're helping me help my wife too. And that was a really great experience, because it made birthing so much more interesting, and it made me feel a part of it. And it just gave me a better and deeper connection to my wife and my kids that I really appreciated. As a midwife, have you done any douling, or do you work with doulas?
Yeah, I've worked with them before, but I agree. Like, we put so much pressure on men to be there for women during labor and childbirth. And so when I did my master's, I focused on the experience of the men during childbirth and labor, because for some, this is a very traumatic environment. And, for a woman to have a physiological birth that they are looking back on with positivity and energy, despite what interventions happen, this is something that they never get over as well. So we want this experience to be a positive one, and relying very heavily on their husbands and their partners to support them. So we need to make sure the partners are well equipped to do this, because it can be quite terrifying for some men to be there.
Yeah.
And they might not always be the best supporter. So having that third person who can be that calming influence and support both mum and dad is such a cool thing to do, because, women who feel well supported in birth, they just birth better.
Yeah.
And they have much better outcomes, and they can relax and just let the body do what the body needs to do.
It was good to be able to see what's supposed to happen, what's supposed to be done, and people not freaking out. Help me to not freak out. So that was a really good experience, and it's something I would recommend to anybody who's going to be having a child. So let's definitely have a doula or something like that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, thank you, Julie, for being on. Does anybody else have any more questions?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much, Julie.
Oh, my pleasure. It's lovely to have a chat about all of this, actually. So thank you. It's taken me away from marking and teaching. Such a beautiful change. And, it's like a bit of chicken soup for your soul. It's a healthy topic to talk about.
Yeah.
It makes
really
you feel better afterwards. So thank you.
Yeah, blessed to know. Especially so early. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, thank you.
What an honor.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.